Let's be honest, if you haven't read anything from the Song of Ice and Fire series, then you're behind the curve. George R.R. Martin has created an incredible universe in his books, and they are absolutely addicting. Seriously, when's the 6th book coming out? But we're not here to talk about that today. Instead, we're talking about his short story, The Ice Dragon. Those familiar with Martin's work will know that he also created a plethora of short stories. The Ice Dragon was written as a children's novel, trust that description as much as you will, and although it has a simpler writing style than his Game of Thrones books, it still clearly has the same charm you've come to love from Martin's work. It was originally published in 1980, but has been republished a few times. I'm reading from the 2014 version, which has the distinction of being illustrated by the highly talented artist Luis Royo. This guy must be as obsessive with his art as Martin is with his words, because the illustrations are damn near perfect. I'll include a link to his website in the description. It really is worth a gander. Anyway, back to the story. So the Ice Dragon is actually about a young girl named Adara, who was born in the coldest winter anyone in the land can remember. However, Adara was not like other kids her age. She was distant, loved the frigid air, was unnaturally adept at dealing with the winter months, and could generally be called cold. And, unlike everyone in her village, she didn't fear the Ice Dragon. The Ice Dragon itself is an infamous beast, unable to be tamed and whose presence brings a harsher winter. However, the dragon loved Adara and she loved it. When she was 4, she first touched the dragon. When she was 5, she rode the dragon for the first time. And when she was 7, she and the Ice Dragon had to fight against the tide of wars that washed over and consumed her village. The prose is as smooth and flowing as anything from Game of Thrones, but without the political context. It's told in third-person limited perspective, centered on Adara and the events around her. There's a distant war being fought between two countries, one of which Adara, her father, brother, and sister live in. And their side is losing. Adara also has an uncle who serves as a dragon rider. Uncle Hal serves to update Adara's father, and thus the reader, of how the war is faring. However, Adara's father doesn't want to leave his farm, despite Hal's insistence when the front line shifts ever closer to their village. Although this book is listed as a children's novel, I'd hesitate to let a kid read it. After all, this was written by one of the most murder-happy authors of our time, and although the book doesn't go into graphic detail, there is a scene where one character gets his head split open by an axe. And in another scene, one character gets set on fire and burns to death. Not really good reading material for the healthy-minded kids out there. Now, one topic I've found conflicting information on is whether or not this story is set in Westeros like the Game of Thrones series. Apparently the publisher claims that it is, but Martin himself said that it is not. So I guess that settles it. That being said though, the book never really distinguishes where it's set, so if you didn't know any better, it feels like it really could be set in Westeros. It obviously has a lot in common with Game of Thrones, and even has dragon riders. Going through the book before I researched it, I thought it could have been set before the events in Game of Thrones, maybe even by a few centuries. Now, as much as I enjoy the story, the ending did feel a bit out of place to me. I can't explain it without going into spoilers, so I'll save that for the very end of this video. Consider this your first spoiler warning. All in all, The Ice Dragon was very enjoyable for me. I liked the prose. The world could have used more development, but the story was really about Adara and her dragon, so we can forgive that. Most of the characters were cool, Uncle Hal being my favorite, but Adara's father was a bit of an idiot. He knows war is coming, but he doesn't leave his land for the sake of protecting his children. He explained his reason why, but I still felt it was entirely selfish on his part. Overall, The Ice Dragon was definitely a page-turner. Well worth the read. But those were my thoughts. Have you read the book? What did you think? If not, do you want to read it now? Comment below and stay tuned for more. Okay, now it's time for the ending I promised. Again, this will contain spoilers for the book, so back out now if you don't want anything ruined for you. So, as the warfront finally arrives, 3 enemy dragon riders attack Adara's farm and threaten to kill her family. By this point, Adara has already gone off and gotten the Ice Dragon with the intent of fleeing to the north, to the land of endless winter, where she and the dragon could be happy together. However, when she hears her father scream in pain, she turns around and begs the Ice Dragon to fight the enemy soldiers. He does, but the dragon is mortally wounded in the process. However, despite the dragon having died to protect Adara and her family, Adara just discards the dragon to run back home. The dragon was already at a natural disadvantage, what with it being summer, so he melted into a puddle of water as the little girl he loved didn't even look over her shoulder to see if he was alright. This struck me as character-breakingly selfish. Suddenly worrying about her father made sense, so I could believe her turning back into battle. But it spent the entire book building up this relationship between the two of them, only to throw it away in the last few pages like an incredible waste. Still, the rest of the book was nice, and at least the quality of the writing didn't drop throughout. I'm really just venting at this point. Check out the book and see what you think.